Terry couldn't figure out why his books weren't selling. He had tried all the strategies that he could think of, and since he had tried those, he was certain there wasn't a need to find any additional strategies. And that's one of the reasons why in today's video we're going to discuss these mistakes cost me nearly $3,000. This is Chris Baird from selfpublishingmadeeasynow.com, where self-publishing doesn't have to be so hard. Well, it was over the last year or two, Terry had written a number of science fiction novels and had managed to get them out onto Amazon. The problem was these specific novels were not selling, and Terry had managed to implement a number of strategies that he himself had come up with as to how to get these books to sell based upon his own thoughts of how he himself would buy or what would motivate him to buy something or not buy something. The problem was he wanted to see more sales on these books, and since the books had already been optimized from his own perspective, there really wasn't a need to do anything else, but the books were still not selling. So he was tired of making no sales or very few sales on his books, and so he was thinking maybe it is about time to give up on all of this, or maybe people just don't realize the quality of the books that he was putting onto the market. So the first thing Terry did was he tested out some covers. He had discovered on Canva you can make your own covers. So he found some pictures that he felt would be good for his science fiction novels, one with like a dog and the other with a horse or something along those lines. It didn't really look like a science fiction cover, but from his perspective, this was a very attractive cover that would definitely be something he would be interested in if he were buying science fiction novels. The second thing that Terry decided to do was to write a book description. And in his book description, on his sales page, he wrote down all of the main elements of the plot. He was telling a little bit about this and a little about these aliens or whatever it was, and just going through it and laying out every aspect of what was going to happen in the book. He just put that right on into the description, because after all, if he were going to be buying a book, he would want to know exactly a little bit upon what exactly the book's about and what's going to happen and these sorts of things. And so the basis of figuring out what the description should look like was based upon his own personal thoughts of what he would like to see when he's looking at a description, and so he made sure that it had it in that. The only problem was he still was not seeing any sales coming from any of these. At this point, he looked below in my video and he grabbed a copy of my absolutely free self-publishing secrets checklist, where I break down the strategies and go through it point by point to ensure that self-publishers like yourself do not have issues when it comes to getting your book on the market and getting it selling. And so the thing is that after downloading the thing, he got on my email list and we started into a dialogue, and he eventually booked a coaching session with me. And that was when I informed Terry that I myself had made lots of mistakes that cost me nearly $3,000 because I was ignoring important strategies. Now, the thing is Terry was very confident that he had already implemented all of the key strategies, well, at least the strategies that he had managed to come up with. And that was when I informed Terry at this moment during our coaching call that, okay, you're going to need to stop this whole process of assuming you know all the strategies. The first rule is that you are not your customer. So what it is that you prefer and things like that, the people who are out there in the wild who are actually buying books, they're not you. They will tell you whether they like what you're doing and the way that you're marketing it simply by purchasing. They will buy your books. If there's nobody buying your books, something's broken on the marketing front or in the content front, but usually it's on the marketing front that's resulting in very few or no sales on your books. And that comes back to these strategies. Most of the strategies that I am teaching, and I give you the absolute best that I have, the latest strategies, these strategies are not obvious. You aren't going to figure these out. Even if you had 100 years, you're not going to magically come across them, because it requires that you testing out across multiple books, across thousands of experiments, and testing to see what exactly works. And that's one of the reasons why you definitely do not want to go it alone when it comes to self-publishing. And joining something like the Self-Publisher 101 program I have is a great way to get into this whole thing and start working through the process of actually figuring out what's broken with the books, or helping you come up with ideas that are actually going to produce books that are going to sell on the market. So some of the things that he was doing, the mistakes that he was making, were identical ones that I made. The first one was he was not targeting keywords that actually matched the exact genre he was in. I know, like, horses are kind of cool and dogs look kind of cozy and stuff, but it was in the science fiction genre, and that was not what his readers would be expecting. So even if they would have loved his book, they were not going to purchase it because it didn't look like a science fiction book, and he wasn't targeting the keywords as well that would go along with the science fiction. He came up with really clever titles that had absolutely nothing to do with science fiction. And I pointed out to him, you're going to want in your subtitle to say, this is a space alien science fiction, maybe possessed animal science fiction, I don't know, horror, something like that, right? And so as opposed to putting some furry dog or horse on the cover, you're going to want to put something that looks like an alien or something that's going to pull the reader in to get them to click, because ultimately that's what we're going to need to do. The second thing is he had no paperback version on Ingram Spark, and I was pointing out to him, I make way more money on Ingram Spark than I do on Amazon print. And so I pointed out that that is something you're definitely going to want to do, which is not an obvious strategy, because why would you want to put paperback books on another site if ultimately it might even come back on Amazon? I had somebody on Quora recently ask this exact question, and the answer is, I don't know why this works. The distribution channels are bigger, and so you have a lot of these sorts of things that you're definitely going to want to pay attention to when you're working with putting the books out there, that you're not going to guess the correct strategies. And so this is something we're going to need to pay a little bit of attention to. And the final thing that he was doing that also cost me thousands and thousands of dollars was he was not running ads to his site or content marketing like I have in my content marketing course. He had not gone through any of these things, and he figured he could just do the marketing by maybe posting links in Facebook groups, because it sort of made sense to him that maybe that's how he would buy. But this is a complete waste of time. Getting the ads up and running is one of the most important things he and you can do with your books in order to get them selling, so that we can figure out what about our cover and our title are going to be a problem. Because if we're getting a lot of impressions coming through to the ads and people are not clicking, it tells us we need to change something. They're giving us information on Amazon, and they're giving it to us at a very cheap rate. In fact, sometimes they pay us, and if we're looking closely at the data as it's coming in, we're not going to make the mistakes that Terry was making and the mistakes that I myself have made. All of these mistakes. There are 1,000 strategies that we're talking about when it comes to self-publishing, and each strategy has layers of depth. And so you're not going to learn all of these at once, and that's one of the reasons why, and you're not going to, definitely like Terry's example, you're not going to guess the correct strategies. So the thing is that it all started in Terry's case, which was with checking below in the description and grabbing a copy of my free self-publishing checklist. That helped to pull him out of this exact situation that he was in, and helped him realize that maybe he wasn't testing and trying all of the strategies that would help his book sell. But ultimately what happened was he finally came to a realization that maybe he didn't have everything figured out, that maybe there are strategies that are out there that can be implemented that don't seem obvious, that you yourself would never work on you. At least you think it wouldn't. In reality, most marketing strategies work on us even if we think they don't work. Like silly ads we don't like, or ads that are like, even if the jokes are stupid, these ads work on us. Even as marketers, we understand the nature of how this all plays out, and we see that these things are very, very psychologically effective, and we need to pay attention to it, and we need to understand that these strategies are not obvious. So we definitely need to plug into someone who can actually speak into that and help do it. And that's one of the things with the whole coaching side of things that make it very easy to get in there, where you can start looking and breaking things down and simplifying the entire process. But what happened was with Terry, he eventually did put these things into practice, and he started to see an increase of his sales and realized that getting this input is incredibly important, and going back and forth with somebody who's actually published, in my case would be 200 books on Amazon, that we're going to have a certain knowledge set that comes to this. Now you might have other knowledge sets, like in his knowledge set would be writing fiction. He knew exactly what to do to write these science fiction books, and his books, they seem to be really quality books. I don't know anything about. I like to read science fiction, but I don't know anything about writing science fiction. I have no experience with that. And so if I were going to write science fiction, I might approach somebody like Terry to tell me what strategies and tactics would be involved in writing a great novel that's going to pull people in. And we understand that we all come with different skill sets, and as we keep doing something over and over and learning the strategies and implementing it, we're going to see our sales start to go up. And Don't get frustrated with yourself and think you need to move super fast. You need to implement everything at once. Just do something, but don't isolate yourself from the strategies that are out there. And that was something that Terry definitely was doing. And the thing is that there's a whole bunch of strategies that I never knew when I first got started with self-publishing. And that's the reason why you should check out above here where I say what I wish I knew before self-publishing. Just check out the link here and I'll see you over there. Thanks.